No word, no dead. No ringy, no dingy. Female, no female. No, no.
Hello, my name is Nissy T, and no, I am not going to be disrupting your usual programming today. We are back with yet another On the Table, but something just a little bit different. This is an exclusive just for you. An interview that Tomi did with Emmanuel Adeseko, all in regards to the COVID-19 vaccine. So grab a drink, grab a snack. I promise you, you're going to enjoy this one. Take a look.
So Emmanuel, thank you for coming on the program today.
No problem.
I just thought two people who have both been through their fair share of controversy. Recently, you've come out.
Well, apparently, yes.
You've come out, and I've come out too, as anti-vax. All of a sudden, which we're not anti-vax, and we're not pro-vax. We're kind of vax neutral.
Education.
Vax. Edu-vax. We're edu-vax. And so, well, unknowingly to me, I was going to be on every newspaper in the world, and that's not even an exaggeration, every newspaper in the world, and unknowingly to you, you were about to be spearheaded into the front line of discussion on this issue, and be on the BBC, be on Channel 4 News, and other ones. I'm working with both left-wing and right-wing government officials to talk about this issue of the vaccine.
Thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News. You're involved in an initiative to try to encourage members of the African Caribbean communities where you are to take up the vaccine. What prompted you to get involved?
Yeah, I've been on a mission to really inform people to make informed decisions. My father passed away. It was COVID related, and I was invited to a roundtable discussion just to really share some of the concerns that I've been hearing in the community. You know, it is important that we address these concerns because we have sincere, intelligent people who are asking questions. And, you know, in terms of previous experiences with, you know, with NHS or experiences of injustice, there are genuine concerns. And so I've got involved in that way, and I've been ultimately trying to work in partnership with political leaders, faith leaders, and also medical professionals to just really share information so that we can demystify some things and help people to make informed decisions.
Oh, we're sorry to hear about your father. It's a very personal reason for getting involved, of course, but what are the concerns that people are sharing with you?
I mean, you know, recently we've experienced, you know, racial profiling George Floyd. We've seen how there was concerns about law enforcement and injustice. And, you know, there are genuine queries about that same kind of, you know, racial discrimination in medication as well. We also have things to do with, you know, in terms of the Christian faith, how people interpret crisis in terms of biblical prophecy. And also there are people who are just genuinely fearful. And I think they have a right to express that fear. I think what would be dangerous to do, though, is to demonize those people and instead offer them a platform to really share their concerns and step by step, you know, call for more information and also to work with the government to check, you know, what message is also being given as well. I think that, you know, with mixed messages with lockdown, this is also fed into suspicions as well.
So tell me, first of all, how did that happen, that whole thing? Because I was just like seeing you on BBC one day talking about this thing, about the vaccine, and we know you're an apostle, right? You're a church planting guy. How does church planting guy become a vaccine specialist?
I was invited to a roundtable for church leaders to speak to members of parliament to discuss, you know, why is it that Black Afro-Caribbean people are not taking the vaccine? Literally 72% right now is the statistic that is not taking it.
72% of Afro-Caribbean?
Yeah.
Is that Asian as well, or just Africa?
It's BAME, you know, Asian as well.
Okay, Asian minority.
So, you know, I had a conversation with them and, you know, I shared my experience. I shared, you know, why I feel that people are not taking it. There was BBC reporters. There was different kind of reporters there. So after that meeting, they contacted me and asked me for an interview. and they asked me, what's my thought? And I said, a vaccine is not a bad thing. It's a solution in itself, but you cannot demonize people for not wanting to take it. We have intelligent people, sincere people who want to understand what is the context, not just of the vaccine, but the lockdown and all that surrounds it, and what are the side effects. So explain those things, and then they presented certain parts of the information, and I thought, it's important now for me to really empower people, educate them, and from there, reporters have been contacting me. I've been speaking to different members of parliament. It's been literally snowballing.
Right, and I just want to make clear, neither of us are scientists, medical professionals.
No.
We're just part of that community of people, that 74% that represent a huge bulk of the British population, and indeed further the world population, who feel a bit skeptical about this vaccine. Why do you think that percentage is so high?
People have got historical trauma. We're in a scenario right now where there's historical trauma meeting crisis. We've never been in a situation like this before. We have George Floyd, the racial profile, law enforcement, the murder that took place. So why wouldn't people be concerned about racial profiling in medication? I'm not condemning the NHS. However, people have had negative experiences. People are asking questions. And I think that, from what I've seen, is there's been this demonization of this particular community by some, not all, but some people, because they have a healthy skepticism of a situation and an intervention that they have past traumas from. So, that's one. Others, there is, we'll talk about it maybe, about eschatology. People have certain views of the end times as well. So I think that this is a black and a Christian issue. I don't think it's just a matter of being a black person.
So I check this through the app, and I constantly check the pulse of our Christian community on there, and a huge 80-something% of people said that they're not going to take this vaccine. And a large majority was eschatological issues, but another huge majority of people were just not informed enough as to this vaccine and why they should take it. Ronald Reagan said that the most feared words you should ever hear your government say is, "I am the government and I'm here to help you." Those are the words that everyone should fear. We're raised to have a healthy skepticism of people in general, and I think healthy skepticism is good, especially when it comes to government. What do you think can help us to make a final decision? Do you believe you have some solutions to actually helping drive the conversation forward? Because right now it feels like it's at a huge stalemate with that large percentage.
It is, but the thing is that I've been speaking to to MPs and saying fear-based, sharing this message of taking a vaccine based upon fear is not a long-term solution. I've been having conversations with medical professionals, Afro-Caribbean professionals, Christian professionals, and getting informed. The course of action I've been saying is let's get educated. The thing about it is that when it comes to this scenario, there is an accountability that the government do have to be open and honest about the information.
Right.
I think that we have to recognize that there are mixed messages that are being sent through lockdown being lifted and lockdown going back on. Mixed messages breeds suspicion.
Right.
And I think that that's some of the issues that we're dealing with right now. In terms of practical things, I think that forums could be held, that's what I'm doing right now, forums being held with medical professionals, church leaders, to have discussions openly so other people can hear, listen in, and get an idea of what actually is going on. But I think that we all need to take responsibility to be informed, and I feel that what's happening right now is there's a few things. There is censorship going on, we can't shy away from it, but there's also a need for us to really take time to look at statistics and also communicate in our communities, ask questions, what's in the vaccine, what's the aftercare like, and make decisions based upon being informed rather than just staying in a place of skepticism without research.
Right, I like that. You seem to have been incidentally thrusted into the forefront of this conversation. Doesn't sound like your typical Sunday sermon. Vaccine, should I take it or shouldn't I? Why aren't enough leaders, pastors of churches, why do you feel they're not dealing with this issue?
I think ultimately that people are afraid. I think that for us as Christians there's a comfortability. I think there's a comfortability that people have to just stay within the four walls, you know, this is us, you know, it comes back to eschatology, you know, this is the end times, so, you know, let's make sure that we're safe. And I'm not saying that, you know, everyone is doing that, but I think that this situation has taught me, and God said something to me, because I said, God, why am I involved in this right now? And God said to me, he said, because the silence amongst some of my people is deafening.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, the silence of the church. And so I think it's an issue of boldness. I think we need to be bold, because ultimately to share your position or to promote a solution or some kind of social justice in this area is going to bring criticism. And most people don't like to be criticized. But I think as leaders, we have a responsibility to actually step up and ask questions, partner with the government in getting information, and also rather than coercing people, let's actually ask what information is available and how can we interpret this in light of what's going on. And we can't shy away from things that have happened in the past. There has been experimentations that have taken place in history. That is a real thing.
On African Americans and Nigerians.
It's a real thing. So we cannot insult the intelligence of, you know, Afro-Caribbean people in this scenario. We have to recognize, and I think that's where there needs to be a platform where we can actually ask these questions and also recognize that there is historical trauma.
Yeah.
You know,
I was really, you know, I was really surprised by this. I didn't do a talk with anybody. I did it by myself, and I was really talking about the vaccine, the conspiracy theories versus the facts, and trying my best as a non-professional, which I made the disclaimer from the start. That was probably the only good piece that the media reported, that I said I was not a professional. Son of professional practitioners, but not a professional myself, just a concerned person like everybody else. And I'm saying this is why I believe that the information we should know, and this is why I believe people are suspicious about this vaccine. I actually gave about 5 different concerns that I think people have that are genuine and need to be answered. Then I pointed to some conspiracy theories like luciferase, which is like a dye that they put in the thing. I didn't say luciferase is Satan's mark of the beast. I just said, change the name. I mean, come on, it just sounds suspicious. Lucifer's race. I mean, it just sounds terrible. The optics don't look good if you're trying to promote non-suspicion. What ended up happening was my video got deleted from YouTube for medical misinformation. And I got a strike on both my YouTube accounts for medical misinformation, which there was nothing really clear that I misinformed people about, because I wasn't out there as a medical practitioner, nor was I providing information or advice or consultation medically. But I pointed to some conspiracy theories and debunked most of them as stoking fear. But eventually my video got deleted. A medical doctor's video got deleted because she was promoting things like remdesivir as a solution to this pandemic. It wasn't a vaccine, it was more of a medicinal therapeutic treatment, probably prescribing more of what she would have called a cure, because she gave it to so many of her patients and they immediately recovered from it. CDC don't count testimonials as scientific fact. They prefer hard science and vaccines and stuff. And so they went to the extreme measure of censoring her and silencing her speech. Certain scientists went on and they got censored and silenced. Medical associations went on, they got censored and silenced. Their publications got debunked and thrown away. And so all of these things stoke more suspicion instead of doing the opposite. In your conversations with political leaders, what do you say to the censorship that's going on? Because it is rampant. It's probably more pandemic than the actual pandemic.
And this is the thing, I've been communicating to different authorities saying that, you know, in this context of misinformation, we have to acknowledge that there is information. There is information, and we have to be mindful about how we police that, because we have an environment now where there's fear in the community, but you also have to recognize there's fear also in the authority as well. And because of that, that can also impact on how they put interventions in to traffic information. I think that they have to be careful, and that's what I've been saying, that you have to be mindful on how you approach people disagreeing with your intervention, because ultimately, as I said, a solution, a vaccine is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not. I don't have a thing about a vaccine, but I have a problem about, number one, if you are censoring information. 2, if you are demonizing people for not agreeing, and you're not promoting a platform where there's safety to actually have these myths or these thoughts, or even some of these things that are actually accurate, responded to, that is going to breed more suspicion. So I'm grateful that, you know, I've had the ear to some significant leaders, but it's an ongoing discussion. And what I'm doing right now is I'm saying that let's start at the place of education. Let's look at what information is out there. Let's also be willing to respond to the objections rather than being offended by them or being, in essence, using fear as a form of control. I think that lockdown, we have to be very, very wise about how we deal with lockdown. And I think that the approach to lockdown as well, like I said, the two mixed messages, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. Is it economical reasons that are more important than fatalities? All of these things contribute to people feeling concerned. And that kind of thing is what I've been discussing with the authorities.
Another thing I would, you know, like to point to is the person in the video who, basically, the person who shared the video that went viral was an actress.
Okay.
It's public knowledge that Tisha Wright shared the video, went viral all over the place, and it caused this mass stir of people. People were just outright outraged because of the sharing of this information. She's a black actress. She got pretty much near people talking about her being cancelled from the world because she was an anti-vaxxer, which she wasn't. She was simply questioning, like human beings have the right to do. It just feels a bit convenient in the landscape and the backdrop of Black Lives Matter that a black actress for whom media voices were trumpeting support for are now villainizing because she doesn't toe the orthodoxy of this vaccine and whether we should take it or not. What do you say to people who look at you and they think, well, he's just a poster child for the BBC? When he finally disagrees with them and what they want, they're going to find somebody else to kind of be their parrot for the rest of us in the propaganda machine to take the vaccine.
Well, the reality of it is that my agenda is to use as a platform to promote education. Ultimately, I feel the problem is not per se skin first, it's sin. You know, that the root of all these things is sin, and the hope that people should put their place in is in Christ. At the same time, there needs to be wisdom in how we keep ourselves safe. People have said various things. I've had people say to me, you know, what are you doing? You know, you need to use your position to do A, B, C, and D. Other people have said that you're deceived. I am not siding with anybody. What I am actually doing right now is promoting education, and so that people can make well-informed decisions. In terms of some of the things that I've seen within the community that have been administered by the government, I don't agree, and that's okay. At the same time, I do recognize that they themselves are also, some of them, there is fear. And so I feel that in this scenario, when it comes to Letitia Wainwright, when it comes to yourself, I feel that even some of the responses to those queries or that situation can also be inspired by fear. I think that we do have a scenario now where this has never happened before. People are literally dying. And so offering them hope for a vaccination is not a bad thing. However, because there's also fear, what's happened is that anyone who's queried that is deemed as somebody who is against the hope that they're holding on to. I'm for it. I'm for promoting hope. I'm also for delivering that hope in a way that is safe so that people can have the healthy, that they have their emotions responded to, they can have a platform to be educated. And I think that that's what's happened. You yourself have experienced it. You felt that asking certain questions, sharing certain things has been interpreted. Even this video that we're doing now, people can interpret in various ways. But the reality of it is that human beings are not silly. I think that we also have to be mindful to empower them so that they can make informed decisions. And so for me, whether I'm known or not is not my agenda. My point is that we have people dying. My issue is that we also have a platform now where there is doctrinal issues that inform our dynamics. Many Christians right now are interpreting this as the end times. And instead of standing up and taking action and being a voice concerning this and demystifying confusion, what's happened is that many people are fearful. People may speak bad about me, and that's okay. But my objective right now is from seeing people around me passing away, seeing things taking place, it's my duty as a believer to be a witness. And so I will communicate with leaders, I will speak to their various people. And I think that every single person should be doing that, whether you're black, whether you're a Christian, you should be taking the steps to promote education, even if people don't agree with your objective?
The hardline stance of this vaccine from the government's perspective is that everyone should just shut up and take it, because this is not about you. This is about who you could possibly infect. You know, the big kind of propaganda line is stay at home equals save lives, right? Stay at home, save lives. Wear your mask, save lives. Take the vaccine, save lives. If you don't, inadvertently, what they're saying is, if you don't stay at home, you're killing people. If you don't wear your mask, you're killing people. If you don't take the vaccine, can you see where this is going?
I understand.
You're killing people. And so, what do you say to a government who tells you that your idea is pretty much going to let people make up their own mind? And we're not trying to let people make up their own mind. We are literally out here saying everybody needs to take this vaccine, otherwise more people will die.
And I would respond to that by saying 72% of Black and Afro-Caribbean people are reluctant to take a vaccine. These are well-educated, sincere people. If that approach was working, you would not have that statistic. That identifies to me that it's not necessarily just about a vaccine, but it's about how you are, your strategy of distributing information. And I feel that we have, again, crisis meeting trauma. And ultimately the word is trust. If you want me to trust you, it's not just a matter of me dictating to you. I respect that, you know, having conversations with professionals and various people, there is a sense of urgency because ultimately doctors, I've spoken to them on the phone, I've spoken to them on FaceTime. People have had people die in their arms. It's real. We can't deny that it's not real. At the same time, if you have historical trauma, historical concerns that have legitimate basis, that approach will not get the lasting results. Fear-based interventions don't have lasting effects or positive lasting effects. And so, as far as I'm concerned, you can continue that approach. Not every person in the government does this, but we can see that this is a very widespread approach. You can continue to do that, but I do not feel that it's going to have the long-term effect. So I'm saying, you know what, empower people. And if you disagree with that, what you're saying is that you are ultimately removing the right for people to think. And that is a dangerous place in society if we get to that place.
But aren't we already technically at that place where there are discussions that we can no longer have, and that's part of cancel culture. Cancel culture says, I'm going to delete you to suit the answer. This is the answer. Shut up. If you don't agree with it, you're gone. And so, I mean, what do you feel about the position of that percentage of people when we are on a slippery slope towards authoritarianism? And we had the Minister of Health come out the other day and say if the infection rate goes any higher than I think, was it 90%, that the government is willing to apply authoritarian measures. And that pretty much means we're going to tie you down and we're going to shove a needle in your arm and you're going to have to take it whether you like it or not. I mean, do you think there's ever a point where authoritarianism is the right answer?
Ultimately, one of the things I do know is that authority in the Bible says that we need to regard authority. At the same time, if authority steps out of the boundaries that have been delegated by God, we're in a position now where you're not required to acknowledge certain interventions. For example, Jesus was known as the Messiah. The Bible says that Paul, I think John and Peter, they said, listen, the Sanhedrin, they said, listen, stop speaking that name. What happened? They said, it's whether you think it's up to you or to God, whether we preach that name, that's your choice. But as far as we're concerned, we must stay within the boundary that God has given us. Now, coming back to the point, the danger of applying that kind of intervention is that it's not going to increase those who take the vaccine. If it was that scenario, it would increase, I feel it would produce some kind of revolution. It would produce some kind of revolt. Again, like I said, fear-based interventions do not have lasting results. And so I feel that that kind of approach will cause not only people to repel, but also there'll be a further questioning in terms of motivations. Now, I know that, you know, people generally have the desire for people to be well. So I don't want to be irresponsible and assume that people desiring people to take the vaccine is a bad thing. But at the same time, again, if we do not recognize the reality that these are a community of people that have had historic issues in terms of racism. Some people want to have children, they don't have information about that. Some people, have just genuine queries. That's okay. If we don't respond well to these queries, what will happen is that you can try and tie someone down in one way, they'll rise up in another way. I'm not inciting rebellion, but I just know from experience of pastoring people, from counseling, from doing various mentoring, that coercion and control ultimately precedes rebellion.
Mm-hmm. I always say this, cancel culture is a precursor to kill culture. And first they cancel, then they control, and then eventually when you lose control, what's left to do but to kill? Right now, Britain is at that cancel culture phase. What happens when they go from cancel culture to control culture? I mean, you and I are Nigerians, our parents fled the Abacha regime to come here for the hope of a better life for us. And they had people cancelled and they had people controlled, and those who you couldn't control, you culled the numbers so that you could get the right communication out there. Just probably a final question for you. What do you tell the average person that walks into your office and they say, Pastor, I really don't want to take this vaccine. I work in the NHS. I'm a nurse. I'm next in line to get it, but I don't want it. But if I don't take it, I'm going to lose my job, and I need to feed my 3 kids. What do you say?
I ultimately realized that as a Christian, you have to stand by your conviction. It's such a dangerous thing to stand by your faith. I think that ultimately we're in a time now whereby even faith in itself is being cancelled in some ways. To stand by biblical beliefs is being cancelled. And I think as Christians, to start with, is such a thing that ultimately we have to be prepared to stand by what we believe in. Now, that has got so many interpretations for those who may even hear me now. But in terms of standing by what you believe in, I've experienced that, from losing a job, standing by what I believe in. I do feel that we have a responsibility to make sure that our conviction is founded upon truth. I'll definitely ask the individual, what is your conviction based upon? If it is founded upon something that they genuinely know that they can't change, then ultimately I would say, listen, this is what I feel. I feel that you need to be informed. Number 2, if you are confident that that's a decision and you can't be convinced otherwise, then you're going to have to accept the consequences of that decision. And I think that we are in a time now whereby the definition of safety is very, very difficult to interpret, because safety really is something that can be a literal thing, but I would like to be safe knowing that I'm standing in what I actually believe in.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
We all have a life. No west, no bad. No lady, no dude, female, no female.